All Might is back to take on the monsters of One Punch Man. Last time we looked at the monsters of Season 1, and this time we're going to be looking at ranking the biological monsters we've seen fight within Season 2. Before we start, I've decided that I want to bump Beefcake and Geriganshoop up from the United States of Smash tier to Plus Ultra from the previous part. But the rest from Season 1, I'm pretty happy with the placements. Also, I just want to say, there's a boatload of monsters in this season, so if I miss a few, it's probably because they're just not important enough to stick on, or it's because they play a much larger part in the Monster Association manga arc, and I'd prefer to rate them there. No need for any more intro than that, so let's go over the tiers and clarifications again for your memory and the newcomers, then we can smash our way into this tier list. For this scenario, we will be using the version of a peak All Might who is not held back by his weakened condition. One who is able to lock in and use his physical capabilities to the maximum in the unforgiving world of One Punch Man. Going by official handbooks and in-series claims when referring to these two characters, we can more or less narratively assume that Shigaraki and Deku's peak are around the level of a prime All Might. So regardless of how much you do or don't agree with that notion, that's what we will use for this video to at least keep some level of power understanding. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you're familiar with All Might and that you know exactly what the symbol of peace is all about. So before we get to smashing these rankings, let's get these tierings explained. Texas Smash indicates low difficulty. All Might is easily above these threats and can style on them with a smile. Detroit Smash means while they're not weak by any means, some focused offense from All Might should sit them down for a permanent rest. United States of Smash indicates that All Might has been pushed to go more or less all out in some way or another, using all of his available repertoire to ensure the safety of the people. Plus Ultra takes that a step above and shows All Might had to dig deeper than ever and barely overcame the battle, standing tall after a brutally taxing victory. And finally, send assistance. While we all love All Might, it's clear that this encounter is too much for him alone, and he's going to need a certain bald hero to step in and save the day. Now, it's time to go beyond Plus Ultra, because All Might is here. Tongue Stretcher is up first, and while I'm sure the monster ladies love what that mouth does, the only thing he's tasting is One for All. The fists of One for All, just so we're clear. Texas Smash tier for Tongue Stretcher. Disaster level Tiger Twins are up next with Mycoplasma and Electric Catfish Man. Neither of these are anywhere near All Might's level alone, and together they amount to the same since they're not a hard counter for him, dropping both of these two into Texas Smash. Also, I always wondered what the deal was with this female monster. She just looks like a person, and she's pretty fucking hot too. Supon was a cool looking dude, but unfortunately doesn't do too well in this list via way of getting treated like a replay button by a My Mask, so All Might should be able to do the same. Texas Smash for our pointy-eared friend. Speaking of pointy, Destrochloridium with his spiky drills isn't much of an issue for any formidable hero, and so All Might should be able to do away with him like Darkshine did to splat him in Texas Smash with his other monster associates. Fistfight Jin shouldn't really be much of an issue, and his whole thing is being physical, yet All Might dominates every category, so that should be a straightforward Texas Smash for him too. G4 is a powerful robot that should not be taken lightly. However, I think while that robot is definitely above the likes of a Deep Sea King type of strength, it's evident that it doesn't pass into the leagues of Carnage Kabuto and the like to earn a spot in Plus Ultra. This is reinforced by how Simulation Carnage Kabuto was still too much for a pre-Gouketsu Season 2 Genos who was able to defeat G4. This robot can definitely offer problems though, and will need to be taken seriously by a Prime All Might, earning him a spot in the United States of Smash tier. Face Ripper is another lethal adversary who gave Genos a decent fight. He's above Deep Sea King 2 without a doubt, but again for me, he's still caught in that zone of being better than a lot of United States of Smash tiers, but not quite elite enough to slice his way into Plus Ultra. So for me, he goes in United States of Smash after All Might makes him face defeat. Get it? Face Ripper, he collects faces. Then I said face defeat, don't worry about it. Junior Centipede and Venus Mantrap scurry into All Might's path, but it's not a fun day for them. Both of them were absolutely clobbered by Metal Bat without much difficulty at all, and All Might's punches will be a fine recreation of the battering they got from him. Texas Smash for the monstrous duo, which leads into the next level, Senior Centipede and Rafflesidon. Stronger than the previous pairing, this combination gave Metal Bat more trouble, but it was mostly due to the fact that Rafflesidon could inflict a sleepiness upon Metal Bat, which made the fight more troublesome than it needed to be. With All Might's wind-whisking movements, this shouldn't be a problem he can't overcome, which will have me just nudge these two stronger monsters a step above for their clever little combination into Detroit Smash. And, following the chain of many legs and disgusting appearances, we have the Elder Centipede at the apex of this uncomfortable pyramid. Centichuro is a massive leap in terms of power compared to the previous monsters, and a leap that may just be too much for the symbol of peace. Even the combined efforts of Genos, Bang and Bomb were not able to finish off Centichuro for good. And not only that, but Centichuro was more than happy to keep going for more. Even being incinerated and exploded from the inside wasn't enough to finish this thing off, and it's capable of leveling entire cities just by way of passing through them. This threat is simply too much for All Might to handle without assistance, and unless he's packing a punch like Saitama, which can disintegrate this thing from head to tail, there's not much he can do to end this fight in his favor. Send assistance for Centichuro. No real way to put him down for good with his incredible defense and regeneration, and no guarantee All Might can last against its onslaught of destruction. Martial Gorilla on the other end of the tier list ends up down in Texas Smash. From what I remember, Armored Gorilla beat this monster in one punch, so All Might should be able to beat him in one punch. That's it. That's the reasoning. Sludge Jellyfish is another lower tier monster from Season 2, and one that resembles the villain with the sludge quirk in My Hero Academia who got packed up by a weakened All Might pretty easily. So he sludges his way into Texas Smash 2. Free Hugger is up next, and given he's a monster that was able to provide harm to Puri Prisoner, he earns himself a spot in Detroit Smash tier. However, since the damage was only surface level and mainly due to it being from Prisoner's own offense being countered by Hugger's defensive nature, I don't think I can put him any higher for that. Eyesight is another monster who got the better of S-Class hero Child Emperor 2, albeit he wasn't using his best tech, but for that I'll let her slither her way into Detroit Smash 2. Added in that poison could be a real issue for All Might if landed. Giant Crow, which attacked King's apartment, can be thrown into Detroit Smash as well, since I imagine it'd be a bit more tricky to deal with considering it can fly, but I imagine a prime All Might attack or two should settle that one into a game Crover. Alright, let's look at some martial artists. Monster Choze is up first. This guy was giving a pretty good account of himself against Suryu, who is roughly around human Garou level, separate from all of the adapting he does once we start moving into the end of the season, give or take, so I think that's enough to put him in the United States of Smash tier. Great fighting skills, energy tags available, should be enough to earn an earnest performance from All Might that requires him to hit him properly to end it. The other martial art monsters who got turned and got no diffed by Suryu, they can go in Texas Smash, not really too bothered about those. Bakuzan was powerful before becoming a monster, then the monster selves upgraded him to threat level dragon, which earned some acknowledgement from Gouketsu, so just following that vein of narrative should lead him going in plus ultra. Should be a difficult fight considering his dragon level attributes combined with devastating martial arts prowess, but I think All Might gets it done. Then we hit the wall, and we hit the wall hard. Gouketsu is living proof within this section that not all dragon level monsters are created equal. I usually see some people trying to say All Might loses to some monster just purely because they are classified as dragon. But you have low, mid, and high dragons. They are not all the same. So give your head a wobble before suggesting something like that. And in this case, Gouketsu is the type who'd be too much for All Might. Too strong, too fast, and packed with martial arts mastery, which would no doubt be a nightmare for All Might to try and smash his way through. Send assistance for Gouketsu, whose design looks like a demonic version of if you fused Ryu and Akuma together from Street Fighter. Haragiri is a weird one to fit in here because he's on the Council of Swordmasters, so he should be capable of handling demon level opposition by the nature of being able to sit alongside people like Atomic Samurai. However, even when further empowered by monster cells and trying to attack Atomic from an advantageous position, he got completely decimated by Atomic. But I'm going to put this down more to Atomic being an absolute stud, rather than Haragiri being someone who excels in fraudsmanship instead of swordsmanship. I generously assume Haragiri can fight demon level threats in normal form, so Monster Haragiri should be above that enough to place in United States of Smash. But not any higher from how utterly outclassed he was in immediate fashion by Atomic, who was already in a disadvantaged seating position when Haragiri chose to make his move. Honestly, I'm not married to this tiering, but that's where I'll put it. Rhino Wrestler is a tough monster, but I don't think he's anything too much to write home about, so I'll put him in Detroit Smash. At most for me, he'd just about scrape into United States of Smash tier, but I'm gonna keep him in Detroit Smash. Does is an interesting one because of how her ability works, but it seems people with strong willpower can overcome it, so All Might should fall into that category. And honestly, he'd likely be capable of just speed blitzing or outright overpowering her anyway, so maybe it doesn't even go that far. But maybe she'll take control of nearby civilians or other heroes, which could make it a more challenging battle for All Might in a more strategic, civilian-focused way. So I'll put her in Detroit Smash since she likes to use those tactics to provide difficulty for her opponents. Pureblood, the prideful monster. Weird one to place since Zombie Man killed him, which means that the arguably physically weakest member of the S-Class has the attributes required to kill Pureblood, and that does him some harm in this tiering. All Might won't be getting tagged anywhere near as much by Pureblood since he far outstats Zombie Man, so I think this one doesn't really go anywhere past the United States of Smash for All Might. I think I may even put Pureblood in Detroit Smash just for losing to Zombie Man, and that's not a knock. I'm a big fan of Zombie Man, to be honest with you. But if you can get put down by him, then that's just a big factor that you're definitely not Cadre level or even approaching Dragon. If Pureblood has lots of nearby monsters or people nearby to steal blood from and regenerate constantly, maybe he can go into United States of Smash tier. But if he doesn't and regeneration is mainly off the table, then I think even Detroit Smash could be his tiering. Take your pick, honestly, but I'll just put him in Detroit Smash for the sake of it. 100 Eyes Octopus, not much to say here. It's a big and strong threat level demon monster, very resilient too, but I think All Might should be able to eventually smash it to a pulp without being too damaged by the end of it, since it likely will have trouble landing on him consistently. It will take some heavy hits to put down for good, so United States of Smash tier for it. Okay, I left this one near the end because it's a very strange one. Awakened Cockroach. He's threat level demon, but he's oddly fast for being in that category. Very fast even. Considering he's said to be able to dodge attacks that are above light speed thanks to his mix of quickness and precognition, this is a very big factor for the fight and adds a weird asterisk to this fight that could give him a better chance of being more problematic to All Might than even some low dragon level monsters. The thing with Genos causing the awakened cockroach to flee is that he managed to make him get stuck to the floor with instant adhesive gel, and that is not something which All Might has. So the sole factor which put a losing Genos above awakened cockroach in their battle was equipment which All Might does not have access to, nor has anything which resembles it in his usual arsenal. Genos wasn't keeping up with Cockroach effectively before that in actual combat, and that Genos iteration is around the combat speed level of All Might, so it's reasonable to believe that Cockroach would simply be too fast for All Might while also being more than capable of harming him if he was causing concern for Genos. Again, this character's speed throws this disaster threat level concept out of whack for this particular encounter, because All Might could very well just simply not be fast enough to hit Awakened Cockroach, or at least effectively, since being able to hit him a few times wouldn't automatically translate to clean hits or meaningful connections. This is such a weird one, because this is one of the very few demon monsters who has a reaction level which seems to fit in the category of dragon, and even goes past some of them. I'll give the strength advantage to All Might, for sure, but it's tough to say how much he could make that work while being speed blitzed by a very game, very dynamically moving awakened Cockroach without the tools to actually halt his movement. This is probably the strangest one to rank in the whole list, and he either goes in plus ultra if you believe that All Might can eventually find a way around it, or send assistance if he cannot. For me, he can beat some of the dragons like Kabuto or Beefcake comes mainly down to the speed factor, where All Might should actually be faster than them, which gives him the edge needed to make the most of his own dominating power. Here in this matchup, he can't utilize his power properly because Cockroach's blinding speed and precognition is pivotal in interrupting and whittling down All Might's effectiveness, and environmental attacks is probably not going to be enough to kill a monster whose thing is being very hard to kill, since he's the monstrous evolution of, well, a cockroach, which is notorious for its survivability. Unless you eat him, and I don't think All Might's doing that one. So weird. And I feel like I'm gonna get flamed for whatever way I choose. So fuck it. Send assistance, because he needs someone to slow this thing down before he can smash it to death. Last but not least, we have Human Garou. I was going to leave him off this list because he's technically not a monster, but I also know you guys would have been United States of smashing me in the comments over it if I left him out. Because he grows throughout the season due to his experiences, I think there's two different answers here. If we take Garou around the start of season 2 and disqualify him from adapting and evolving, I think All Might defeats him by way of superior attributes and overwhelming force, most likely leaving him somewhere in United States of Smash tier or plus ultra even, due to his martial arts prowess playing a big part. However, if we take end of season 2 Garou, where he's far more empowered, then he'll definitely be in send assistance by way of him surviving and surprising the presented versions of Genos, Bang and Bomb while being exhausted and poisoned. Since that Garou is ridiculously more formidable thanks to his insane growth and vital combat experiences. Added in the fact that Garou is a far more skilled fighter than All Might, and it would all prove to be too much for the symbol of peace. Human Garou is very underrated, and I think a part of that is how strong monster versions of Garou are, and also how people just completely overlook martial arts skill difference in matchups a lot of the time because they're too focused on factors which those very same martial arts will dampen or negate. But with his attributes scaling to the heroes he fought and survived against, combined with his prodigious fighting talent and ability to redirect attacks, it should be too much for All Might. And so, there you have it. Season 2's monsters and how All Might performs against them from the perspective of Saitama World. Be sure to like the video, subscribe for more One Punch Man content, and support by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube if you want to go beyond plus ultra. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.